This podcast is produced by the Harwood Productions Podcast Network. To learn more about the network and to find more of our shows, visit us online at www.harwoodpodcast.com.
Black and white cookies are the perfect combination of cookie and cake. And in my recipe, half is covered with chocolate ganache, the other half with white chocolate ganache. To get started, take 2½ cups of flour and put it into a small little mixing bowl. Then add ½ teaspoon of baking soda and ½ teaspoon of salt. Then just give that a quick little mix up, and then when you're done, set it aside. Now for the wet ingredients, we want 2/3 cup of well-shaken buttermilk. Sometimes the solids settle at the bottom, so shake it up and put it into a little measuring cup, because then we're going to add some vanilla, about a teaspoon. Now over at the mixer, we're going to add 2/3 cup of softened unsalted butter and start mixing that up so it gets nice and soft. And then we're going to be adding 1 cup of sugar. Now let that mix around for about 3 minutes till it gets nice and fluffy, and then we're going to slowly add 2 eggs to this mixture. Now it's really important to put the eggs in one at a time and let it beat up and get mixed together before you add the other egg. Otherwise it gets too much liquid in and it's hard to get it mixed together again. Then it should turn nice and fluffy like this. And then we're going to start adding our flour, but we're just going to add a little bit of flour and then a little bit of buttermilk. And we're just going to go back and forth until all the buttermilk and all the flour is mixed in. Once everything is mixed in, just let it kind of beat up very slowly just for another minute or so. And then when it looks like all the flour is mixed in, we're going to go ahead and take it off the mixer, and you're going to get a rubber spatula and kind of just give it that last turn so that all the flour is mixed in. Now get your baking sheet ready with a little cookie scoop and start putting the dough out on the sheets. Now these cookies will spread out a little bit because they are kind of cake-like, so make sure you leave plenty of room in between each one. And then when you get a sheet ready, we're going to put them in a 350-degree oven for about 6 to 8 minutes. When they come out of the oven, they should be nice and puffy, kind of pale golden, and they should spring back when you touch them. It's important to get them off the baking sheet so they stop cooking, and then take your next batch and pop them into the oven. Now we're going to start by making our white chocolate ganache. So we're going to start with 1/4 cup of heavy cream in a little saucepan, and we're going to heat that on medium heat till it's nice and hot. We're going to add a teaspoon of vanilla, and we're going to add 2 teaspoons of a white corn syrup, and that's really going to help keep our chocolate nice and smooth. And then we're going to add in 1 cup of white chocolate chips, and then you can just put that back on the burner and stir it till it gets nice and smooth. Make sure to keep it on a low heat. Now when your cookies are completely cooled, you need to flip them over. We're actually going to be frosting the bottoms of these cookies. And all I do is I take a little offset spatula and I put a glob of frosting on in the center and sort of pull it down, and then kind of drag my knife across the bottom of the cookie. And you just go through and you frost all the cookies but just the white side of them. Now as you're going along, you may find your chocolate starts to get a little stiff on you. Just pop it back on the burner for just a minute or so and it'll soften up real nice for you, and you can just continue to frost your cookies. So again, I just take some on my knife. Notice I keep the cookie down so any of the frosting can kind of drizzle back on into the pan of chocolate. And you can actually kind of get into the rhythm of this, and it really doesn't take that long to do. Now we make the chocolate ganache the same way as the white chocolate. We take a 1/4 cup of cream, heat it up in a pan, and then we're going to add 2 teaspoons of a light corn syrup to it. And then instead of the white chocolate, I like to use a cup of the semi-sweet chocolate. And again, you're just going to kind of stir it on the stove until it gets nice and smooth on a low heat. Okay, so our chocolate ganache is ready, so we're just going to do the same thing, but we're going to be frosting the other sides of our cookies. So pick the cookie up, again, tilt it kind of down into the pan, get a bunch of chocolate on your knife, and then just run it right along the side where the white chocolate meets, and then kind of use your knife to scrape the bottom. Drag your knife across, and then just scoop it around the bottom. Now again, when you get about halfway through, if your chocolate starts to stiffen up on you, you can just pop it back on the stove to warm it up. And by the time you get to frosting these halves of the cookies, you'll be going through these really quickly. One of the fun things about serving black and white cookies is seeing how people actually eat them. Some people nibble all one side, then the other side. Some people eat them right down the middle. But people are very decisive about how they eat their cookie, and they feel their way is the right way. So as always, you can get the recipe by going to our website, or if you have any questions or ideas, send me an email. I'll see you next time. Want to see what's going on behind the scenes at Harwood Podcast Network? Maybe you want to know what's going on with your favorite shows. You can follow us by going to twitter.com/Harwood Podcast. We have daily entries, photos, all kinds of behind the scenes info. We'll see you on Twitter.